At her nephew's christening, Sonia gets divorced in public. Unaware the godfather was the Mafia boss, the words still echo in her mind like a sentence pronounced by fate itself. She stands frozen in the marble foyer of St. Anthony's Cathedral in Chicago, her fingers trembling around the small silver cross she wears at her throat. The afternoon light streams through stained glass windows, casting crimson and gold patterns across the stone floor, and somewhere behind her, the murmur of gathered guests rises like the hum of bees disturbed from their hive. Sonia Herrera is 32 years old. She has dark hair that falls in careful waves past her shoulders, eyes the color of coffee touched by morning cream, and hands that have learned to be steady, even when her heart is not. Today she wears a navy blue dress, modest and elegant, chosen specifically because her sister-in-law Elena had asked her to look respectable for the christening photographs. She had ironed it 3 times, this morning standing in the cramped kitchen of her apartment, while her husband Marco scrolled through his phone without looking up. She should have known then. She should have read the silence between them like a language she had forgotten how to speak. The cathedral is one of the oldest in the city, built in 1892 by Italian immigrants who carried their faith across the Atlantic like precious cargo. Its walls have witnessed generations of baptisms, weddings, and funerals. Today, it witnesses something else entirely, the unraveling of a woman who thought she understood her own life. Sonia walks forward, her heels clicking against the floor in a rhythm that feels too loud, too present. The pews are filled with familiar faces. Her mother-in-law Dolores in the front row, dressed in black as always, her lips pressed into a line of perpetual disapproval. Her brother-in-law Tomas stands near the altar, holding his infant son Gabriel in arms that look too large and clumsy for such a small creature. Elena hovers beside them, radiant in cream silk, her smile so wide it seems to split her face in two, and Marco. Marco stands apart from the family, near a side entrance, his phone pressed to his ear. He is 40 years old, with the kind of handsome face that ages into something harder, sharper, like a blade that has been used too many times. His suit is expensive, more expensive than anything they can afford on his salary as a mid-level accountant. Sonia has never asked where the money comes from. She has learned not to ask about many things. The priest emerges from the sacristy, his white vestments bright against the shadows. Father Domenico is ancient, his skin like parchment stretched over brittle bones, but his eyes are still sharp. He surveys the congregation with the measured gaze of a man who has seen too much of human nature to be surprised by any of it. "We gather today to welcome Gabriel Antonio Herrera into the arms of the church," he begins, his voice carrying through the vaulted space with practiced ease. Sonia finds her seat in the third pew, beside a woman she does not recognize. A cousin of Tomas, perhaps, or a friend of Elena's from her book club. The woman smells of expensive perfume and holds a leather clutch in her lap like a shield. She does not acknowledge Sonia's presence. The ceremony unfolds in the familiar rhythm of ritual. Water, oil, the white cloth placed over Gabriel's small body as he squirms and fusses in his father's arms. Sonia watches it all through a veil of distance, as though she is viewing the scene from very far away, through glass that distorts and warps the edges of reality. She thinks about her own baptism, 32 years ago, in a small church in Phoenix, where her parents had settled after crossing the border, with nothing but hope and determination. She thinks about her mother's hands, rough from cleaning other people's houses, touching her forehead with blessed water. She thinks about the promises that were made that day, promises of grace, of protection, of a love that would never abandon her. She wonders if God has been paying attention. The godparents step forward, Eleanor's sister Maria, round-faced and nervous, clutching her prayer book like a lifeline, and a man. Sonia's breath catches in her throat. She has never seen him before, but something about his presence shifts the very air in the cathedral. He is tall, perhaps 6'2", with shoulders that fill his dark suit, with the kind of authority that cannot be bought or borrowed. His hair is black, touched with silver at the temples, swept back from a face that could have been carved from Roman marble. His jaw is sharp, his cheekbones high, and his eyes, God, his eyes, are the grey of storm clouds gathering over Lake Michigan in winter. He moves with the deliberate grace of a predator who has no need to hurry. Every step is measured, every gesture controlled. When he takes his place beside the baptismal font, the priest's ancient hands tremble slightly, and Sonia sees something flicker in Father Domenico's expression. Recognition. Fear. "Who presents this child for baptism?" the priest asks, his voice suddenly thin. "We do," Maria says, her voice barely above a whisper. "We do," the man echoes, and his voice is low, rough, like stones tumbling in deep water. Sonia's fingers tighten around her cross. She cannot look away from him, even though something in her mind screams at her to avert her. Eyes to make herself small and invisible, to disappear into the shadows of the pew like a creature that has learned to survive by being overlooked. The ceremony continues. Prayers are spoken. Candles are lit. Gabriel wails once, a sharp cry that cuts through the sacred silence, and the man, the godfather, reaches out with one large hand and touches the infant's cheek with a gentleness that seems impossible given everything else about him. The baby falls silent. Sonia feels something crack. Open in her chest, a fissure she did not know existed, and through it pours a sensation she cannot name. It is not fear, exactly, though fear is part of it. It is not curiosity, though that is there too. It is something older, something that lives in the bones and the blood, something that recognizes danger and beauty, and the terrible space where they meet. The christening ends. The congregation rises. Voices fill the cathedral with congratulations and laughter as people drift toward the doors, toward the reception that awaits them at Tomas and Elena's home in Lincoln Park. Sonia stands slowly, smoothing the fabric of her dress, and turns to find Marco. He is walking toward her through the crowd, his phone finally tucked into his pocket, his face wearing the expression she has come to know so well, distant, distracted, as though she is an item on a list he has already checked off. "Sonia," he says, and the way he speaks her name sounds like a door closing. "We need to talk." She opens, her mouth to respond, to ask what could possibly be so urgent that it cannot wait until they are home, until they are alone, until they have maintained the careful performance of normalcy that has become the architecture of their marriage. But Marco does not wait for her to speak. "I want a divorce," he says, loud enough for the people around them to hear, loud enough for his mother Dolores to turn, her dark eyes widening, loud enough for Elena to gasp and press her hand to her mouth. Loud enough for the godfather to pause in his measured stride toward the door. The world stops. Sonia feels the words hit her like physical blows, each one landing in a different part of her body. I, in her chest. Want, in her stomach. A, in her throat. Divorce, everywhere, everywhere, spreading through her like poison, like fire, like the absence of oxygen. "What?" she whispers, and her voice does not sound like her own. "I've met someone," Marco continues, his tone flat, rehearsed, as though he has practiced this speech in front of a mirror until all the emotion has been wrung out of it. "Her name is Vanessa. We've been together for 8 months. I'm moving in with her next week." 8 months. Sonia's mind struggles to process the number. 8 months ago, she had cooked Marco his favorite meal for their anniversary. Chicken mole, the recipe passed down from her grandmother, hours of careful preparation. 8 months ago, he had kissed her forehead and told her he was tired too, tired for anything more. 8 months ago, she had lain in bed beside him, staring at the ceiling, wondering why she felt so alone in her own marriage. Now she knows. "You're telling me this here," she manages, her voice gaining strength, gaining edges. "In a church? At your nephew's baptism?" Marco shrugs, a gesture so casual, so indifferent, that Sonia feels rage begin to burn through the numbness. "I tried to tell you at home. You're never listening. You're always somewhere else." "I'm always somewhere else?" She laughs, a sound that scrapes her throat raw. "Marco, I work 2 jobs so we can pay rent while you spend money on God knows what. I cook, I clean, I try to make a home for us and you— See? He cuts her off, his voice rising with frustration. This is what you do. You make everything about you, about what you've sacrificed. I can't breathe in that apartment, Sonia. I can't be who I am. Dolores pushes through the crowd, her black dress rustling like the wings of a crow. Marco, what is the meaning of this? This is not the time— Stay out of it, Mama. Marco does not even look at her. His eyes remain fixed on Sonia, and in them she sees something she has never seen before. Not cruelty exactly, but an absence of care so complete it might as well be the same thing. The papers are already filed, he continues. My lawyer will contact yours. I'm taking the car and the savings account. You can keep the furniture. The furniture. He is giving her the furniture. Though 12 years of marriage can be divided into columns, assets distributed, a life dismantled with the efficiency of a business transaction. Sonia feels the tears coming, hot and humiliating, and she forces them back with a will she did not know she possessed. She will not cry here. She will not give him that satisfaction. She will not become the spectacle he has already made her. You're a coward, she says quietly, and the words carry in the sudden silence of the cathedral foyer. You couldn't face me alone, so you did this here in front of everyone, because you knew I wouldn't make a scene. You knew I would be too ashamed to fight back. Marco's jaw tightens. I did what I had to do. No. Sonia shakes her head slowly. You did what was easiest. For you, like everything else in our marriage. She turns away from him, her hands shaking, her vision blurring despite her determination not to cry. She needs to get out. She needs air, space, the ability to fall apart in private. She pushes through the crowd, past the whispered comments and the pitying looks, past Eleanor who reaches for her arm and murmurs something about coming to the house anyway, past Tomas who stares at his brother with an expression of disbelief and disappointment. She reaches the heavy wooden doors of the cathedral and shoves them open, stepping out into the grey Chicago afternoon. The air is cold, carrying the bite of early November, and she breathes it in like medicine, like salvation. The steps of St. Anthony's are wide and worn, leading down to a street lined with parked cars and bare trees. Sonia stands at the top, her arms wrapped around herself, watching the wind scatter dead leaves across the pavement. She does not know how long she stands there. Time has become unreliable, stretched and compressed in ways that no longer make sense. She is thinking about nothing and everything, about the apartment she will return to alone, about the clothes Marco left in the closet, about the wedding photograph she should have burned years ago. You'll catch cold. The voice comes from behind her, low and rough, and Sonia spins around to find the godfather standing in the doorway of the cathedral. Up close, he is even more striking than he appeared from the pew. His features are harsh but not unkind, weathered by experience rather than cruelty. His grey eyes study her with an intensity that makes her feel simultaneously seen and exposed. I'm fine, she says automatically, though the trembling of her voice betrays her. He raises one dark eyebrow. You're shaking. Sonia looks down at her hands and realizes he is right. Her entire body is trembling, small convulsions she cannot control, as though her nervous system has finally registered the magnitude of what has happened and is responding accordingly. It's the cold, she lies. The man says nothing. He removes his suit jacket, dark wool, immaculately tailored, and holds it out to her. I don't, she begins. Take it. It is not a request. Something in his tone makes her comply. She accepts the jacket and drapes it over her shoulders, immediately enveloped in warmth and a scent she cannot identify. Cedar, perhaps, and something darker, something like smoke and old wood. You're Elena's friend, she says, grasping for normal conversation, for anything that might anchor her to the present moment. Or Tomas's. A faint smile touches the corner of his mouth, though it does not reach his eyes. Something like that. I'm sorry you had to witness— She gestures vaguely toward the cathedral doors. That. Don't apologize. His voice hardens almost imperceptibly. You have nothing to apologize for. Sonia feels the tears threatening again and blinks rapidly to dispel them. 12 years, she whispers, more to herself than to him. 12 years, and he tells me in a church, in front of everyone. The man is silent for a moment, his gaze moving past her to the street below, as though calculating, something, weighing variables she cannot see. The man who spoke to you, he says finally. Marco Herrera, he is your husband. She notes the way he says it, not a question, but a statement requiring confirmation. Yes, she says, was, is. She shakes her head. I don't know anymore. He works for a company called Meridian Holdings. Sonia looks at him sharply. How do you know that? The man's expression does not change. I know many things about many people. A chill runs through her that has nothing to do with the November air. She should be afraid of him, she realizes. She should be terrified. There is something about this man that speaks of danger, of depth she cannot fathom, of a world that exists parallel to her own, but never touches it. And yet, who are you? She asks. He turns his grey eyes back to her, and for a moment she sees something flicker in their depths. Not warmth exactly, but something adjacent to it, something that might, in different circumstances, be called recognition. My name is Dante Moretti, he says, and the name settles into her consciousness with the weight of a stone dropped into still water. And I believe, Sonia Herrera, that we are going to become very well acquainted. Before she can respond, a black car pulls up to the curb below, sleek, expensive, the kind of vehicle that belongs to a world she has only seen in movies. A driver emerges and opens the rear door, standing at attention. The reception, Dante Moretti says, nodding toward the car. Elena will be expecting you. I can't go there, not after. You can. His voice brooks no argument. You will walk into that house with your head held high, and you will show everyone in that family that Marco Herrera made the greatest mistake of his miserable life. Sonia stares at him, this stranger who speaks to her with such certainty, such command, as though he has already written the next chapter of her story and is simply waiting for her to catch up. Why do you care? She asks, genuinely confused. You don't even know me. Dante Moretti looks at her for a long moment, and something in his expression shifts. A crack in the marble, a glimpse of the man beneath the mask. No, he says quietly, but I intend to. He offers her his arm, a gesture so old-fashioned, so unexpectedly courteous, that Sonia almost laughs despite everything. Instead, she takes a deep breath, squares her shoulders, and places her hand on his sleeve. Together, they descend the cathedral steps toward the waiting car. Check if you're already subscribed to this channel. Every story we share is crafted to make you feel, to make you reflect, to remind you that even in life's most devastating moments, something unexpected can change everything. Subscribe now so you never miss the next chapter. The drive to Lincoln Park takes 20 minutes, though it feels simultaneously longer and shorter, time continuing its strange behavior, refusing to follow any rules. Sonia understands. She sits in the back of Dante Moretti's car, his jacket still around her shoulders, watching the Chicago skyline pass by the tinted windows. He sits beside her, maintaining a careful distance, his long legs stretched before him, his hands resting on his thighs. He has not spoken since they got in the car, and Sonia finds herself grateful for the silence. Her mind is too full for conversation, too cluttered with fragments she cannot yet piece together. Marco's face when he said the word divorce. Dolores's hand flying to her chest. Elena's shocked gasp, the weight of 100 eyes turning toward her, witnessing her humiliation, her pain, the moment her life split into before and after. You're thinking about him, Dante says, not looking at her. Sonia considers denying it, but something about this man makes deception feel pointless, like trying to hide from someone who can see in the dark. I'm thinking about the last 12 years, she admits, about whether any of it was real. Does it matter? The question catches her off guard. Of course it matters. He turns to look at her then, his grey eyes unreadable. The past is fixed. It cannot be changed. What matters is what you do now. Easy to say when your life hasn't just been destroyed. A flicker of something, amusement, recognition, passes across his features. You would be surprised what I know about destruction. The car slows, and Sonia looks out the window to see the familiar facade of Tomas and Elena's brownstone. Cars line the street, and she can see figures moving behind the illuminated windows. The reception is already underway. I should give you your jacket back, she says, reaching for the collar. Keep it. Dante opens his door. For now. Before she can protest, he's out of the car and opening her door, offering his hand to help her out. Sonia takes it, feeling the warmth of his palm against her cold fingers, and steps onto the sidewalk. Why are you doing this? She asks, again because the question has not stopped circling in her mind. Dante Moretti straightens his tie and looks down at her with an expression that is almost soft. Because everyone deserves a witness, he says, and because Marco Herrera has made an enemy of someone he should have left alone. He does not clarify whether he means her or himself. Together they walk up the steps to the front door. Elena opens the door before Sonia can knock, her face a map of conflicting emotions. Relief, concern, and something that looks uncomfortably like pity. Sonia. Elena pulls her into a fierce embrace, designer perfume and the softness of silk against Sonia's cheek. I am so sorry. I had no idea Marco was going to... God, I could kill him. Tomas is furious. It's not your fault, Sonia says, gently extracting herself from the embrace. You didn't know. Elena's eyes move past her to Dante, who stands on the step like a guardian statue, his presence impossible to ignore. Mr. Moretti, Elena says, and Sonia does not miss the change in her voice, the deference, the careful respect. Thank you for bringing her. Mrs. Herrera. Dante inclines his head slightly. Congratulations on your son's baptism. Please, come in, both of you. Elena steps aside, gesturing toward the warmth and noise of the house beyond. The brownstone is elegant in a way that has always made Sonia feel slightly inadequate. High ceilings, crown moldings, furniture that costs more than her annual salary. Today it is filled with guests, their conversations creating a constant hum beneath the soft classical music playing from hidden speakers. Sonia feels the weight of attention as she enters. Conversations pause, heads turn. She knows what they are thinking. Poor Sonia, humiliated at a christening, abandoned by her husband in front of the entire family. She lifts her chin higher and keeps walking. Dante moves beside her, a silent presence that somehow makes the stairs more bearable. She wonders if he knows what he is doing, if he understands the message his proximity sends, that she is not alone, that she has an ally, that she should not be underestimated. She finds Tomas in the living room, holding Gabriel against his shoulder, the baby finally sleeping after his big day. Tomas looks up as she approaches, and his expression collapses into something between anger and sorrow. Sonia. He shifts the baby to one arm and reaches for her with the other. I had no idea he was planning this. If I had known, you would have told me. Sonia squeezes his hand. I know, it's okay, Tomas. It's not your responsibility. He's my brother. His behavior reflects on all of us. Tomas's jaw tightens. What he did was unconscionable. What's done is done. Sonia says the words with a steadiness she does not feel. I just need to figure out what comes next. From across the room, she can feel Dante Moretti's gaze on her, watching, assessing. She does not look at him. The next hour passes in a blur of sympathetic touches and murmured condolences. Sonia accepts them all with grace, playing the role expected of her, dignified, composed, refusing to let Marco's cruelty break her in public. Inside, she is screaming. She escapes to the kitchen eventually, seeking a moment of solitude among the catering trays and half-empty champagne bottles. She leans against the counter, closes her eyes, and allows herself 30 seconds of complete breakdown, her body shaking, her breath coming in ragged gasps, her hands pressed against her face to muffle any sound. 23 seconds, says a voice from the doorway. Sonia whirls around to find Dante leaning against the frame, his arms crossed over his chest. I was counting, he continues, how long it would take before you let yourself fall apart. You lasted longer than I expected. Are you always this charming? She snaps, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. No. He pushes off the doorframe and moves toward her. Usually I am much worse. Despite everything, a sound that might almost be a laugh escapes her throat. It surprises her. She did not think she was capable of anything resembling humor right now. Why are you following me? She asks. I am not following you. I came for the canapes. He gestures toward a tray of elaborately arranged appetizers. Though I admit, the company is more interesting. Sonia studies him. This strange man who has inserted himself into the worst day of her life with all the subtlety of a hurricane. Elena called you Mr. Moretti, she says, like she was afraid of you. People are often afraid of things they do not understand. That's not an answer. No, he agrees. It is not. He picks up one of the canapes, a delicate construction of smoked salmon and cream cheese, and examines it with apparent fascination. Your husband, he says, still looking at the appetizer, works for a company called Meridian Holdings. They are an investment firm, legitimate on the surface. Beneath the surface, he takes a bite, chews thoughtfully. Less so. Sonia's heart stutters. What are you saying? I am saying that Marco Herrera has been laundering money for people who would kill him without hesitation if they thought he had become a liability. Dante finishes the canapé and brushes crumbs from his fingers. I am saying that his sudden desire for divorce may have less to do with this Vanessa woman, and more to do with protecting her from what is about to happen to him. The kitchen feels suddenly too small, the walls pressing in from all sides. Sonia grips the counter behind her, her knuckles white. That doesn't make sense. If he wanted to protect me, why would he humiliate me like that? Because he is a coward. Dante's voice is flat, matter-of-fact. Because making you hate him is easier than telling you the truth. Because if you despise him, you will not ask questions, will not investigate, will not put yourself in the path of people far more dangerous than he is. Sonia's mind races, trying to reconcile this information with the Marco she thought she knew, the man who watched sports on weekends, who complained about his job, who kissed her without passion and slept beside her without closeness. Could he really have been hiding something so enormous? Could she really have been so blind? How do you know all this? She demands. Dante meets her eyes, and she sees in his gaze something that looks almost like respect. Because the people Marco Herrera works for, he says quietly, work for me. The world tilts. Sonia's grip on the counter is the only thing keeping her upright. She stares at Dante Moretti, at his expensive suit, his powerful bearing, his eyes like winter storms, and suddenly all the pieces click into place, the deference, the fear, the black car with the driver who stood at attention. She cannot make herself say the word. I am a businessman, Dante says, with certain unconventional interests. He tilts his head slightly. I am also apparently the godfather of your nephew Gabriel. Elena knows? Tomas knows? Tomas has done legal work for my organization for years. He is very good at not asking questions he does not want answered. Dante's tone carries no judgment. It is how many people survive in this city. Sonia should run. She should push past him and get out of this house and never look back. She should call the police, report whatever she knows, remove herself from this situation as quickly and completely as possible. Instead, she asks, what happens to Marco now? Something flickers in Dante's expression. Surprise, perhaps, at the question she chose to ask. That depends on him. If he cooperates with certain adjustments we are making to our operations, he may survive. If he becomes a problem, he leaves the sentence unfinished. You're going to hurt him. I'm going to do what is necessary to protect my interests. Dante steps, closer, close enough that she can smell the cedar and smoke again. The question, Sonia Herrera, is what I am going to do about you. Her breath catches. What do you mean? You know things now. About me. About my connection to your family. about your husband's involvement in my business. His grey eyes bore into hers. That makes you either a liability or an asset. I prefer the latter. I won't say anything. The words come out more frightened than she intends. I know you won't. He says it, with absolute certainty. Not because you are afraid of me, though you should be, but because you are smart enough to understand that speaking would destroy the people you love. Elena, Tomas, your nephew. You would not risk them to avenge a man who betrayed you. He is right. She hates that he is right. So what happens now? She asks. Dante is silent for a long moment, studying her face as though searching for something, a clue, a sign, an answer to a question he has not yet voiced. Now, he says finally, you go back to the reception. You smile. You let everyone see that Sonia Herrera is not broken. And when you leave, my driver will take you home. And tomorrow? A ghost of a smile crosses his features, there and gone so quickly she might have imagined it. Tomorrow, Dante Moretti says, everything changes. He turns and walks out of the kitchen, leaving her alone among the champagne bottles and the catering trays, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. She should be terrified. She is. But beneath the terror something else is stirring, something that feels dangerously close to hope. The rest of the reception passes in a haze. Sonia moves through the rooms like a ghost, accepting condolences she barely hears, eating food she cannot taste. She watches Dante from across the room, noting how people gravitate toward him even as they maintain a careful distance, like planets caught in the orbit of a sun that might burn them if they get too close. Marco does not appear. Someone says he left immediately after the confrontation in the cathedral, that he is staying with Vanessa now, that he has already begun packing his things from the apartment. Sonia absorbs this information with a numbness that worries her. She should feel more, shouldn't she? Rage, grief, something. But the only thing she feels is Dante Moretti's gaze tracking her across the room, a constant pressure against her skin. At 9 o'clock, Elena approaches her with concern, written across her features. You should go home, she says gently. You've been incredibly brave today, but you need to rest. Yes? Sonia does not argue. I think I do. Tomas wanted to drive you, but he's putting Gabriel down. I can call a car. That won't be necessary. Dante appears beside them, silent as a shadow. My driver will take Mrs. Herrera home. Elena opens her mouth as though to protest, then closes it again. Sonia watches the calculation in her sister-in-law's eyes, the weighing of dangers, the navigation of unspoken rules. That's very kind of you, Mr. Moretti, Elena says finally. It is practical. Dante's tone suggests the matter is settled. Mrs. Herrera, shall we? Sonia turns to Elena, embracing her one last time. Thank you for everything, she whispers. Take care of Gabriel. Take care of yourself. Elena's arms tighten around her. And Sonia, be careful. The warning hangs in the air between them, heavy with implications Sonia is only beginning to understand. She follows Dante out of the brownstone and into the cold Chicago night. The black car waits at the curb, the driver already standing beside the open door. Sonia pauses at the top of the steps, her breath forming white clouds in the darkness. I still have your jacket, she realizes, looking down at the wool draped around her shoulders. Keep it, Dante says again. I can't keep accepting things from you, not knowing what I know now. He turns to face her fully, and in the light, spilling from the brownstone windows, his features look softer than they did in the cathedral, more human. It is a jacket, he says, not a contract. Everything is a contract with men like you, isn't it? The corner of his mouth twitches, not quite a smile, but close. You are beginning to understand, he says, and she cannot tell if it is a compliment or a warning. They descend the steps together. Dante holds the car door for her, and she slides into the leather interior, inhaling the scent of new upholstery and expensive things. He does not join her. Instead, he leans down to speak through the open door. The driver will take you to your apartment. Tomorrow someone will contact you about relocating to a more suitable location. Relocating. Sonia sits up straight. I'm not going anywhere. Your apartment is not safe. Dante's voice is patient but firm. The people Marco works for know where you live. Until the situation is resolved, you need to be somewhere they cannot easily reach. And where exactly is that? One of my properties. You will have privacy, security, everything you need. He pauses. This is not a request, Sonia. She should argue. She should insist on her independence, on her right to make her own choices. But she thinks about the empty apartment waiting for her, the shadows in every corner, the knowledge that somewhere out there, dangerous people might be watching, waiting. Fine, she says, but this doesn't mean I trust you. It would be foolish if you did. Dante straightens. Sleep well, Mrs. Herrera. Tomorrow, as I said, everything changes. He closes the door and the car pulls away from the curb, carrying Sonia into the darkness. She looks back through the rear window, watching Dante Moretti's figure grow smaller against the lights of the brownstone. He stands motionless on the sidewalk, his hands in his pockets, his grey eyes fixed on the car. She watches until he disappears from view, and then she turns forward and faces the road, ahead. The apartment is exactly as she left it, a small space on the third floor of a tired building in Rogers Park, where the radiators clang in winter and the neighbors argue through thin walls. Sonia moves through the rooms like an archaeologist, examining the ruins of someone else's life. Marco's slippers by the bathroom door, his razor on the sink, a tube of toothpaste they bought together at the grocery store last week. She does not cry. She packs. It takes her 3 hours to gather everything that belongs to her, clothes, books, the few pieces of jewelry her mother left her when she passed 5 years ago. She fills 2 suitcases and a cardboard box, and when she is done, she looks around the apartment and realizes how little of herself was ever here. She had made a home for Marco, and in the process, she had forgotten to make one for herself. At midnight, her phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Car will arrive at 9 a.m. Be ready. She does not respond. At 9:00 exactly, a black SUV pulls up to the curb. The driver who emerges is not the same one from yesterday. This one is younger, with a face that gives away nothing and eyes that sweep the street with professional caution. Mrs. Herrera. He opens the rear door. I'm Anthony. I'll be taking you to the residence. The residence, she repeats. Does it have a name? Anthony's expression does not change. Mr. Moretti will explain everything. She considers refusing. She considers walking away, finding a hotel, disappearing into the vast anonymity of the city. But she thinks about what Dante said, about Marco, about the people he works for, about dangers she does not fully understand. And she knows that disappearing is no longer an option. She gets into the car. The drive takes nearly an hour, heading north along the lake, past the city limits, into suburbs that grow increasingly spacious and green. Eventually, they turn onto a private road, marked only by a discreet stone pillar, and Sonia watches through the window as trees close in around them, creating a canopy of bare branches that filters the pale November sunlight. The house appears without warning, or rather the estate, because calling it a house would be like calling the ocean a puddle. It is a mansion in the classic sense, stone and timber and glass, built into a hillside overlooking Lake Michigan. The architecture speaks of old money and new security, elegant facades hiding cameras, sensors, the invisible, infrastructure of protection. Anthony parks in a circular driveway and opens her door. Someone will bring your bags, he says. Mr. Moretti is waiting for you inside. Sonia climbs the stone steps to the entrance, where a heavy wooden door swings open before she can knock. A woman stands in the doorway, perhaps 60 years old, with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that assess Sonia with brisk efficiency. Mrs. Herrera, I am Margaret, the house manager. Welcome. Thank you. Sonia steps into a foyer that echoes with space and light. A grand staircase curves upward to the right. To the left, a hallway leads toward the back of the house. Everywhere she looks, she sees details that speak of wealth and taste. Artwork on the walls, fresh flowers in crystal vases, the gleam of polished wood and stone. "Mr. Moretti is in the library," Margaret continues, "if you'll follow me." The library is at the end of a long corridor, through double doors that Margaret opens without knocking. Sonia enters to find walls lined with books from floor to ceiling, a fireplace burning steadily in the corner, and Dante Moretti standing by the windows, looking out at the grey expanse of the lake. "Leave us, Margaret," he says without turning. The door closes behind Sonia with a soft click. "You came," Dante says, still facing the window. "I didn't have much choice." "There is always a choice." He turns then, and she sees that he looks different in the daylight, still formidable, still commanding but more human somehow, with shadows under his eyes that suggest a sleepless night. "The question is whether you made the right one." "I don't know yet." Sonia looks around the library, taking in the leather chairs, the reading lamps, the ladder that slides along the shelves. "This is your home." "One of them." He moves to a sideboard and pours something amber into 2 glasses. "Whiskey." It's 10 in the morning. "Your husband announced a divorce at a christening. I think we can excuse a small deviation from social norms." He holds out the glass. She takes it because he is right, because she needs something to do with her hands, because the warmth of the alcohol might chase away the coldness that has settled into her bones. "You said you would explain everything," she says. "So explain." Dante gestures toward one of the leather chairs, and Sonia sinks into it, cradling the whiskey in her palms. He remains standing, one hand in his pocket, the other holding his own glass. "What do you know about organized crime in Chicago?" he begins. "Only what I see in movies." "Then forget everything you think you know. The reality is both simpler and more complex." He takes a sip of his whiskey. "There are families in this city, families who have operated for generations, who have their hands in businesses both legal and illegal, who function by a code that most people would find incomprehensible. My family is one of them. The Morettis. The Morettis." He inclines his head. "My grandfather built an empire from nothing, a young man from Palermo who arrived in this country with $5 in his pocket and unlimited ambition. By the time he died, he controlled half the docks on Lake Michigan and had senators asking for his blessing." Sonia tries to reconcile this history with the man standing before her, cultured, educated, speaking with the careful precision of someone who has learned to hide his origins beneath layers of refinement. "And now?" she asks. "Now I run the family business." Dante's smile is thin without humor. "Which means I navigate between the old world and the new, between traditions that no longer serve us and changes that threaten to destroy us. I have enemies on every side, competitors who want what I have built, law enforcement who dream of bringing me down, and members of my own organization who believe I am not ruthless enough to protect what we have. And Marco, where does he fit into all of this?" Dante sets down his glass and moves to the fireplace, staring into the flames. "Your husband is clever with numbers. We needed someone to manage certain financial arrangements, to create the appearance of legitimacy for funds that could not be traced through normal channels. Tomas recommended him." He glances back at her. "Your brother-in-law genuinely believed he was helping his family. He did not understand the full scope of what he was asking Marco to do. And Marco agreed. Marco saw an opportunity to make money without working too hard for it. He was greedy but not particularly careful." Dante's voice hardens. 3 months ago, a federal investigation began looking into Meridian Holdings. Someone leaked information. We do not yet know who. If that investigation proceeds, it will lead back to Marco and through Marco potentially to me. Sonia's hand tightens around her glass. "So you're going to—" "What? Silence him?" "If I wanted Marco Herrera dead, he would already be in the lake." Dante turns to face her fully. "What I want is to control the situation, to ensure that when the investigation closes, it finds nothing that can be used against my family. Marco has a part to play in that, whether he realizes it or not." "And me?" Sonia asks. "What part do I play?" Dante is silent for a long moment, studying her with those storm-grey eyes. "That," he says finally, "is what I am still trying to determine." He moves across the room and takes the chair opposite her, leaning forward, with his elbows on his knees. "You are an anomaly, Sonia Herrera. You have lived for 12 years beside a man involved in criminal enterprise, and yet you knew nothing. You discovered yesterday that your nephew's godfather is the head of one of the most powerful crime families in the Midwest, and yet you did not run. You are sitting in my library, drinking my whiskey, asking questions instead of screaming for help." His head tilts slightly. "Why?" Sonia considers the question, searching for an answer that makes sense even to herself. "Because I don't have anywhere else to go," she says slowly. "Because my marriage was a lie, and my job probably can't sustain me on my own, and my family is 1,000 miles away in Arizona." She meets his gaze. "And because something tells me that you're not going to hurt me." That something could be wrong. It could be. She takes a sip of her whiskey, feeling the warmth spread through her chest. "But I've spent 12 years ignoring my instincts. And look where it got me. Maybe it's time to start listening." Something shifts in Dante's expression, a softening that is there and gone in an instant. "You will stay here," he says, "until the situation is resolved. You will have everything you need, food, clothing, access to the grounds. What you will not have is contact with the outside world. No phone calls, no emails, nothing that can be traced. Do you understand? You're making me a prisoner. I am making you a guest." His voice is quiet but firm. "A guest with certain limitations, yes, but a guest nonetheless." Sonia looks around the library, at the books, the fire, the view of the lake beyond the windows, and thinks about her apartment in Rogers Park, with its clanging radiators and thin walls. "What happened to Marco?" she asks. "After the christening?" "He is being monitored, his movements, his communications, his activities. If he becomes a danger, he will be dealt with. If he cooperates, he may survive this." Dante pauses. "I will not lie to you, Sonia. The outcome is not certain. But you're not going to kill him. Not unless he gives me no other choice." It is not a reassurance, exactly, but somehow it is enough. "All right," Sonia says. "I'll stay." Dante nods, a single sharp movement of his head. "Margaret will show you to your room. Lunch is at 1, dinner at 7. If you need anything, use the intercom beside your bed." He rises, and Sonia rises with him, setting down her barely touched whiskey. "Dante!" She uses his first name without thinking, and something flickers in his eyes at the familiarity. "Yes? Thank you." She does not know why she says it, only that it feels true. "For telling me the truth, or at least part of it." The ghost of a smile crosses his face. "The truth is a dangerous thing, Sonia Herrera. Be careful how much of it you ask for." He leaves the library, and Sonia stands alone among the books and the silence, wondering what she has gotten herself into, and, despite everything, feeling something she had almost forgotten was possible: hope. Now pause the video and comment. Sometimes the most unexpected person becomes our greatest protector. This moment in Sonia's story is where everything begins to shift. And I want to know if you felt it too. The days begin to find a rhythm. Sonia wakes each morning in a bedroom larger than her entire Rogers Park apartment, with windows that frame the lake like living paintings. She showers in a bathroom of marble and glass, dresses in clothes that appear mysteriously in her closet, elegant, comfortable, chosen with care by someone who seems to understand her taste better than she understands it herself. She eats breakfast alone in a sun-filled kitchen, served by a young woman named Rosa, who speaks with a soft Mexican accent that reminds Sonia of her childhood, of her mother's voice singing songs in Spanish while she cooked. The familiarity is comforting and painful in equal measure. The estate is vast, 15 acres of groomed lawns and wild forest, walking paths that wind through gardens dormant for winter. a greenhouse where orchids bloom in defiance of the November cold. Sonia explores it all in the first week, memorizing its contours, its hiding places, its views of the distant city skyline. She does not see Dante every day. He appears at dinner sometimes, materializing at the head of the long table in the formal dining room, asking questions about her comfort, her needs, her state of mind. Their conversations are careful, circling around the edges of topics too dangerous to approach directly. She learns that he reads philosophy before bed, that he plays piano when he cannot sleep, that he carries the weight of his family's expectations like a stone around his neck. He learns that she worked as a nurse before Marco convinced her to quit, that she missed her calling every day of her marriage, that she dreams of returning to medicine when her life stabilizes. "Why did you stop?" he asks one evening, over plates of food neither of them is eating. "Marco said we didn't need 2 incomes. Sonia pushes a piece of roasted chicken around her plate. "He said he wanted me to focus on us, on building a family." "And the family?" "Never happened." She looks up at him. He always had an excuse. Not the right time, not enough money, not the right apartment. I believed him for years. I thought he was being practical. She laughs, but there is no humor in it. "I was a fool. You were trusting." Dante's voice is unexpectedly gentle. "There is a difference." "Is there?" "Yes." He sets down his fork, giving her his full attention. "Fools refuse to learn from their mistakes. You are not refusing. You are here, asking questions, trying to understand. That is not foolishness. That is courage." Sonia does not know what to say to that. She has not thought of herself as courageous in a very long time. The second week brings an unexpected development. A guest. Sonia is reading in the library when Margaret appears at the door, her normally composed expression touched with something that might be anxiety. "Mrs. Herrera, there is someone here to see you." Sonia looks up from her book, her heart suddenly pounding. "Who?" But before Margaret can answer, a figure pushes past her into the library, a woman in her 60s, grey hair escaping from beneath a practical wool cap, dark eyes blazing with familiar fire. "Mija." Sonia rises so quickly she knocks the book from her lap. "Tia Carmen." Carmen Herrera, not a blood aunt, but the woman who raised Sonia's mother, who became grandmother and confidant and fierce protector rolled into one, crosses the library in 3 determined strides and envelops Sonia in an embrace that smells of cinnamon and home. "How?" Sonia manages, her voice muffled against Carmen's shoulder. "How are you here?" "That man." Carmen pulls back, holding Sonia at arm's length, examining her with critical attention. "The one with the eyes like a wolf. He sent a car to Phoenix. Told me you needed me." Sonia's mind struggles to process this information. Dante. Dante sent for her aunt. Without telling her, without asking permission, he had reached across 1,000 miles and brought her the closest thing she has to family. "I'll leave you," Margaret says from the doorway, and then she is gone, and Sonia is alone with the woman who taught her to pray, to cook, to believe in herself, even when no one else did. "Sit down." Carmen steers her toward a chair. "Tell me everything." So Sonia does. She tells her about Marco, about the divorce, about the christening and the humiliation and the discovery of crimes she never suspected. She tells her about Dante Moretti, about the estate, about the strange limbo she has been living in for 2 weeks. Carmen listens without interrupting, her lined face growing grimmer with each revelation. "And this man," she says, when Sonia finishes. "This Moretti, he is treating you well?" "Yes." Sonia hesitates. "Better than I expected. Better than I probably deserve." "You deserve everything good in this world." Carmen's voice is fierce. "You always have. It was that worthless Marco who convinced you otherwise." "Tia." "No." Carmen holds up a hand. "I will say this once, and then we will not speak of it again. I never liked that man. From the moment you brought him to meet me, I felt the wrongness in him. But you loved him. So I held my tongue. I should not have. I should have told you. To run when you still could. It wouldn't have changed anything. Sonia knows this is true. I wouldn't have listened. Maybe not. Carmen reaches out and takes her hand. But you are listening now. So listen to me, mija. This man, this Moretti, he is dangerous. I can see it in the way his people move, in the way they watch everything. But danger is not always evil. Sometimes it is only power that has not yet chosen its direction. What are you saying? Carmen's dark eyes bore into hers. I'm saying that you have a choice to make. You can run from the danger, try to rebuild your life somewhere far away, start over as though none of this ever happened, or you can stay. You can learn what this man wants, what he truly is, and decide whether it is something you can accept. And if I can't accept it? Carmen smiles, an expression that is both sad and knowing. Then at least you will have looked truth in the face. That is more than most people ever dare. They spend the afternoon together, Carmen exploring the estate with the same thorough curiosity Sonia displayed in her first days. Carmen approves of the kitchen, befriends Rosa within 15 minutes, and somehow convinces Margaret to reveal the location of a hidden garden behind the greenhouse that Sonia had never found. At dinner, Dante appears and stops dead in the doorway when he sees Carmen seated at the table. Mrs. Delgado, his voice is carefully neutral, I see you've arrived safely. I have. Carmen looks him up and down with the same critical assessment she gives to ingredients at the market. Sit down, Mr. Moretti. The food is getting cold. Something flickers across Dante's face, surprise, perhaps, or amusement at being ordered around in his own home. But he sits, taking his usual place at the head of the table, and dinner proceeds in a silence that is more comfortable than Sonia would have expected. Carmen asks questions, pointed, probing questions about Dante's business, his family, his intentions toward her niece. Dante answers with a candor that startles Sonia, speaking more openly than he has in 2 weeks of their private conversations. Perhaps there is something about Carmen that invites truth-telling. Perhaps he simply recognizes a force of nature when he encounters one. By the time dessert is served, flan, which Rosa has somehow produced despite the late notice, the tension in the room has eased into something almost resembling warmth. You have a good kitchen, Carmen announces as she finishes her flan, and a good woman running it. These are the signs of a man who understands what matters. I'll take that as a compliment, Dante says dryly. It is. Carmen rises from her seat. Now, if you'll excuse me, I am old, and the journey was long. I will see you in the morning, mija. She kisses Sonia's forehead and sweeps out of the room, leaving Sonia and Dante alone with the remnants of their meal. Thank you, Sonia says into the silence, for bringing her here. Dante picks up his wine glass, swirling the dark liquid within. You needed someone who belongs to you, not to this world. She was the obvious choice. How did you even know about her? I make it my business to know things. He meets her eyes over the rim of his glass. You mentioned Arizona, your family. It was not difficult to find the connection. That should probably frighten me. Does it? Sonia considers the question. 2 weeks ago, the answer would have been an unequivocal yes. Now, sitting across from this man who has shown her more consideration than her husband did in 12 years, the answer is not so clear. No, she admits. It probably should. But it doesn't. Dante sets down his glass and leans back in his chair, studying her with an expression she cannot read. You are adapting, he says, faster than I anticipated. Is that a problem? It is. Unexpected. He pauses. I have encountered many people in my life, Sonia. Most of them are predictable, driven by fear or greed or both. You are neither. You have seen what I am, what my world is, and yet you sit across from me as though this were an ordinary dinner between ordinary people. Maybe I'm tired of ordinary. The words come out before she can stop them. Ordinary got me a husband who lied to me for years. Ordinary got me divorced at a baptism. Maybe extraordinary is worth the risk. Something shifts in Dante's eyes, a heat that was not there before, quickly controlled. "Be careful," he says softly. Words like that can change everything. Maybe everything needs to change. The air between them feels suddenly charged, electric with possibility. Sonia's heart is pounding again, but not from fear, from something else entirely, something she had forgotten she was capable of feeling. Dante rises from his seat, and for a moment she thinks he is going to come around the table, going to close the distance between them. Instead, he walks to the doorway and pauses, his back to her. "Good night, Sonia," he says without turning. And then he is gone, and she is alone with her wine and her racing thoughts, and the unfamiliar sensation of wanting something she never expected to want. The days after Carmen's arrival take on a different quality, brighter somehow, infused with the energy of having someone she loves nearby. Carmen has appointed herself head of kitchen operations, working alongside Rosa to produce meals that taste like Sonia's childhood, like Sunday dinners and birthday celebrations, and all the comfort she has been missing. Margaret watches these developments with an expression that might be approval or resignation. It is hard to tell with her. Anthony, the young driver, begins appearing for meals more often, drawn by Carmen's enchiladas and her stories about growing up on the border. Even the security guards who patrol the grounds, silent, professional men who normally blend into the background, seem affected by her presence, nodding greetings that grow warmer with each passing day. Sonia finds herself laughing more than she has in years. She helps Carmen in the kitchen, getting flour on her nose while they make tamales for Thanksgiving. She walks the grounds with her aunt, showing her the hidden garden and the orchid greenhouse, and the spot on the cliff where you can see all the way to the Chicago skyline on clear days. And she watches Dante. He is different when Carmen is in the room, more relaxed somehow, as though the older woman's presence gives him permission to be something other than the calculating crime boss who controls an empire. He listens to her stories with genuine interest, asks questions about her life in Phoenix, her memories of Sonia's mother, her opinions on politics and religion and the proper way to make mole. He likes her, Sonia observes one afternoon, standing in the library with Margaret while Carmen holds court in the kitchen. "Mr. Moretti does not like many people," Margaret replies, her tone carefully neutral. "But Mrs. Delgado is different." "Different how?" Margaret considers the question. "She treats him as though he was simply a man. Most people treat him as either a monster or a god. She treats him as neither." Sonia thinks about this, about what it must be like to live a life where everyone you meet is either terrified of you or trying to use you. She thinks about the loneliness that must come with that kind of existence, the weight of always being something other than human. She wonders if Dante thinks about it too. That evening she finds him in the library after dinner, standing at his usual post by the windows, a glass of whiskey in his hand. "May I join you?" He turns, and something in his expression softens when he sees her. "Of course." She pours herself a small measure of whiskey, she has developed a taste for it these past weeks, and takes the chair nearest to his position by the window. "Margaret said something interesting today," she begins. "Margaret says many interesting things, most of them when she thinks no one is listening." Sonia smiles. "She said that Carmen treats you like a man instead of a monster or a god." Dante's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. "And what do you think?" "I think—" She pauses, searching for the right words. "I think you're someone who has had to be hard for so long that you've forgotten you're allowed to be soft sometimes." The silence stretches between them, filled only by the crackle of the fire and the distant sound of wind against the windows. "When my father died," Dante says quietly, still looking out at the lake, "I was 23 years old. I had just finished my MBA at Northwestern. I had plans to take the family business legitimate, to leave behind the violence and the shadows. And then my father was shot in front of me, and I had to choose between those plans and my family's survival." Sonia says nothing, sensing that he needs to speak, needs to be heard. "I chose survival." His voice is flat, emotionless. "I became what I needed to become. I made decisions that haunt me still. And I built an empire that protects my family, but costs me everything else. He takes a long drink of whiskey. So yes, perhaps I have forgotten how to be soft. Perhaps I have forgotten how to be anything but what I am. That's not true. Sonia stands, moving to join him at the window. I've seen you with Gabriel at the christening. I've seen you with Carmen at dinner. I've seen you with... She hesitates. With me. Dante turns to look at her, and in the firelight his grey eyes are almost silver. You see what I want you to see, he says. No. She shakes her head. I see what you try to hide. The man who brings an old woman from Arizona because he knows I need family. The man who gives me space to grieve a marriage I should have left years ago. The man who... She trails off, suddenly uncertain. The man who... what? His voice is low, dangerous in a way that has nothing to do with threat. The man who makes me feel safe. The words come out barely above a whisper, even though I know I shouldn't, even though everything about this situation is wrong. Dante reaches out and touches her face, just one finger, tracing the line of her cheekbone with a gentleness that makes her breath catch. Nothing about you is wrong, he says. Nothing. She does not know who moves first. Perhaps it is both of them at once, drawn together by a gravity that has been building since the moment he handed her his jacket on the cathedral steps. His lips find hers, and the world narrows to the taste of whiskey, and the warmth of his hand cupping her face, and the sound of her own heart pounding in her ears. The kiss is not gentle. It is hungry, desperate, full of all the things neither of them has dared to say aloud. Sonia's hands clutch at his shoulders, pulling him closer, and he responds by backing her against the window, his body pressed to hers, his mouth, moving from her lips to her jaw to the sensitive skin beneath her ear. We shouldn't, she gasps, even as her fingers wind through his hair. No, he agrees against her throat. We shouldn't. But neither of them stops. It is Dante who finally pulls back, his breathing ragged, his eyes dark with desire. Not like this, he says, his voice rough. Not while you are still legally married to another man. Not while your life is still in turmoil. Sonia wants to argue, wants to tell him that she has not felt this alive in 12 years, that she does not care about legalities or propriety, or any of the things that are supposed to matter. But she sees the determination in his face, the honor beneath the ruthlessness, and she understands. When, she asks, when can we... When you are free. He takes her hand and presses a kiss to her palm. When the danger has passed. When you can choose me knowing exactly what you are choosing. I already know. You think you do. His smile is sad. But there is still much you have not seen, much that might change your mind. He releases her hand and steps back, putting distance between them that feels like miles. Good night, Sonia, he says, and she hears the echo of all the other nights he has left her wanting more. This time, though, she does not let him go so easily. Dante. She catches his arm before he can reach the door. Whatever comes next, whatever I see, whatever happens, I want you to know something. He waits, his expression unreadable. I'm not afraid of you. She holds his gaze. I'm not afraid of what you are or what you've done. I'm only afraid of going back to a life where I feel nothing at all. For a long moment, he simply looks at her. Then, slowly, he raises her hand to his lips and kisses it once more. Then perhaps, he says quietly, there is hope for both of us. He leaves, and Sonia stands alone in the library, her skin still tingling where he touched her, her heart full of something that feels dangerously like love. Thanksgiving arrives wrapped in the first snow of the season. Sonia wakes to find the world transformed, the estate grounds blanketed in white, the lake a sheet of pewter beneath the heavy sky. She lies in bed for a long time, watching the flakes drift past her window, thinking about all the Thanksgivings that came before. There had been celebrations with her parents when she was young, crowded tables and too much food, and her father's booming laugh echoing through their small house. There had been quieter meals after they passed, Just her and Carmen in the Phoenix kitchen, both of them pretending they were not missing the people who used to fill the chairs around them. There had been the Thanksgivings with Marco and his family, where Sonia always felt like a guest at someone else's party, tolerated but never truly welcomed. This year is different. This year, Carmen has taken over the kitchen with military precision, Rosa and 2 other staff members serving as her devoted troops. The dining room has been transformed with centerpieces of autumn leaves and candles, the long table set for a gathering that Sonia is not entirely sure she understands. "Who else is coming?" she asks Dante that morning, finding him in his study surrounded by papers. He looks up and she is pleased to see that he seems tired. Perhaps he did not sleep well either. Perhaps he spent the night thinking about the same thing she was thinking about. "Family," he says simply. It is tradition. And so Sonia discovers another facet of Dante Moretti, his extended family, arriving throughout the morning in a stream of expensive cars and designer coats. There are cousins from New York and California, an elderly great-aunt from Sicily who speaks no English, but somehow communicates perfectly through gestures and expressions. There are children, 3 of them, belonging to Dante's cousin Vincenzo and his wife Maria, tumbling through the estate with the boundless energy of the young, filling the halls with laughter. Sonia watches it all from the sidelines, unsure of her place in this gathering, until Carmen takes her arm and pulls her firmly into the center of the festivities. "You are family now," Carmen declares, loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Anyone who says otherwise answers to me." No one argues with Carmen. The dinner itself is a blur of food and conversation, dishes from 3 different culinary traditions crowding the table. Carmen's Mexican specialties, alongside Rosa's Italian classics and the traditional American turkey that Margaret insisted upon. Sonia finds herself seated between Dante and his cousin Vincenzo, a jovial man who tells terrible jokes and clearly adores his family. "So you're the one who has my cousin twisted in knots," Vincenzo says midway through the meal, leaning close so only Sonia can hear. "I've never seen him like this, distracted, human." "I don't know what you mean," Sonia replies, but she can feel herself blushing. "Sure you don't." Vincenzo's grin is knowing. "Just be good to him, okay? He deserves someone who sees him. Not the boss, not the legend. Him." Sonia looks down the table to where Dante is listening to his great-aunt with an expression of genuine interest, his usual guardedness softened by the warmth of the gathering. "I'll try," she says. After dinner, the children demand a snowball fight, and to everyone's shock, Dante agrees to participate. Sonia watches from the terrace as he chases the little ones across the frozen lawn, his laughter echoing off the trees in a way she has never heard before. He was like that as a boy. The great-aunt has materialized beside her, speaking through an interpreter, Carmen, who has apparently added Italian to her list of accomplishments. Full of joy, full of life. Then his father died, and the joy went away. Maybe, she looks at Sonia with eyes that have seen a century of history. "Maybe you bring it back." That night, after the guests have gone to their rooms and the house has fallen quiet, Sonia finds Dante on the terrace, standing in the snow with his face turned up to the sky. "You'll freeze," she says, stepping out to join him. "I wanted to see the stars." He points upward. "When I was young, my mother used to tell me that our ancestors watched the same stars from the hills of Sicily. It made me feel connected to something larger than myself." Sonia moves to stand beside him, close enough to feel the warmth of his body against the cold. "Your family loves you," she says. "I could see it today. They're not afraid of you. They're proud of you. They see what they want to see." But his voice is softer than usual, touched by something she cannot name. "Maybe we all do." She turns to look at him. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing." He meets her gaze, and in the starlight, his eyes are more silver than grey. "What do you see, Sonia, when you look at me?" She considers the question carefully, knowing that her answer matters more than almost anything she has ever said. "I see a man who carries a weight no one should have to carry alone. I see someone who has done terrible things for reasons I'm only beginning to understand. I see. She reaches out and touches his face, her fingers cold against his skin. I see someone I'm falling in love with, even though it terrifies me. Dante closes his eyes, leaning into her touch. You should not love me, he says. It will only bring you pain. Then let it. She steps closer, pressing herself against him. Let me feel something real, even if it hurts. Let me be alive again, Dante. Please. When he kisses her this time, it is gentle, reverent, a promise sealed beneath the winter stars. When this is over, he murmurs against her lips, when you are free and the danger has passed, then we will have this conversation again, and I will tell you everything, every dark corner of my soul, every sin I have committed, every reason you should run as far from me as possible. And if I don't run? He pulls back just enough to look into her eyes. Then perhaps, he says, I will finally stop running too. They stand together in the snow until the cold becomes too much to bear, then retreat inside to the warmth of the fire and the promise of something neither of them expected to find. The following weeks bring changes. Dante's lawyers complete the divorce proceedings with a speed that suggests significant resources were applied. Marco signs everything, without protest, apparently eager to sever his ties to a wife who now lives in the home of a man he has come to fear. The house in Rogers Park is sold. The savings account is divided. The legal dissolution of a 12-year marriage takes less than 30 days. Sonia signs the final papers on a Tuesday afternoon in Dante's study, his lawyer present as a witness. When it is done, she sits for a long moment, staring at her own signature, waiting to feel something. How does it feel? Dante asks, after the lawyer has gone. Empty. She looks up at him. I thought I would be sad or angry or something, but I just feel nothing. That will change. He comes around the desk and takes her hands. Give yourself time to grieve what was lost, even if it was never really what you thought it was. And then, he pulls her to her feet. We see what comes next. What comes next is a dinner. Just the two of them, in the small breakfast room that has become Sonia's favorite. Space in the house. Candles flicker on the table. Outside, snow falls steadily against the windows, and Carmen has prepared a meal that tastes like celebration. I promised you something, Dante says over dessert. The night on the terrace. You promised you would tell me everything. I did. He sets down his fork. And I intend to keep that promise. But before I do, I need you to understand something. What I am about to tell you may change how you see me. It may make you want to leave. And if that is what you choose, I will not stop you. I will make sure you are safe, that you have everything you need, and I will let you go. Sonia's heart is pounding, but her voice is steady when she speaks. Tell me. So he does. He tells her about his first kill, a man who had threatened his mother, eliminated with the kind of efficiency that marked Dante as someone to watch. He tells her about the wars he has fought, the blood on his hands, the people he has destroyed in the name of family, loyalty. He tells her about the compromises he has made, the lines he has crossed, the darkness that lives inside him like a second soul. He tells her about Marco, not just the money laundering, but the other things, the ways her husband had tried to leverage his position, the threats he had made, the danger he had placed her in without her knowledge. I could have killed him, Dante says quietly. Many times. It would have been cleaner, simpler, but I thought about you, about what it would mean for you to know that your husband died at my hands, so I chose another path. What path? He is being relocated. A new identity, a new life, somewhere far from here. He will never contact you again, never threaten you again. But he will live. Dante meets her eyes. I did that for you, so that you would never have to carry the weight of his death. Sonia is silent for a long time, absorbing everything she has heard. You're not who I thought you were, she says finally. Dante's expression does not change, but she sees something flicker in his eyes, fear perhaps or resignation. "No," she continues, "you're not who I thought you were. You're something more complicated, more human." She reaches across the table and takes his hand. "I won't pretend I understand everything about your world, or that I condone all the choices you've made, but I understand why you made them, and I understand that you're trying to be something better. Sonia, I'm not finished." She squeezes his hand. "I spent 12 years with a man who hid everything from me, who made me feel like I was crazy for wanting more. You've given me truth, even when it was hard. You've given me safety and respect, and something I never thought I'd feel again." She stands, moving around the table to stand before him. "So yes, maybe I should run. Maybe a smarter woman would be halfway to the airport by now. But I'm not smart, Dante. I'm just a woman who fell in love with a man she barely knows, in a situation she never expected." Dante rises to meet her, his hands finding her waist, pulling her close. "You deserve better than me," he says. "Maybe. But I don't want better. I want you." When they kiss this time, there is no hesitation, no holding back. Dante lifts her in his arms and carries her from the breakfast room, up the grand staircase, down the hall to the master suite. And for the first time in longer than she can remember, Sonia feels like she is exactly where she is meant to be. Spring arrives with unexpected warmth, melting the last of the snow and coaxing green shoots from the frozen ground. Sonia stands on the terrace, watching the sun rise over Lake Michigan, thinking about how much has changed in 5 short months. She is living in Dante's home now, not as a guest, not as a prisoner, but as a partner. Carmen has returned to Phoenix, satisfied that her niece is in good hands, though she calls every Sunday with updates on the neighborhood and reminders to eat properly. The divorce is final. Marco is gone. And Sonia has begun the process of rebuilding a life she never expected to have. She has returned to nursing, working 3 days a week at a clinic in a neighborhood where Dante's family has deep roots. The patients there know who she is, who she belongs to, but they treat her with the same warmth they would show any caregiver. She is good at her job. She had forgotten how good, how satisfying it feels to help someone heal. Her relationship with Dante has settled into something that feels almost normal. If normal includes security details and occasional whispered conversations about matters she pretends not to hear. They have found their rhythm, the push and pull of 2 people learning to share space, to share lives, to become something larger than either of them could be alone. "You're thinking too hard," Dante says, appearing on the terrace with 2 cups of coffee. He has come from his study, where he has been working since before dawn, but his smile, when he sees her, is genuine, unguarded. "I'm thinking about how strange life is." She accepts the coffee gratefully. "A year ago, I was living in a cramped apartment, working 2 jobs, wondering if my marriage would ever feel like anything more than a slow suffocation. Now you're living with a crime boss." His tone is wry. "Quite the upgrade." She laughs, reaching out to touch his face. "You're more than that to me. You know that." "I know." He turns his head to kiss her palm. "I also know that I have been better because of you. My people have noticed, my family has noticed." He pauses. "I have noticed." "What do you mean?" Dante is quiet for a moment, looking out at the lake. "I have spent my entire adult life preparing for battle. Every decision, every relationship, every moment filtered through the lens of threat and advantage. And then you appeared, and suddenly I found myself thinking about something else, about peace, about what it might be like to build something, instead of destroy it. And what have you decided?" He turns to face her, taking both her hands in his. "I have decided that the old ways are not the only ways, that there is a path forward that does not require blood and fear, that my family can become something more than what we have always been." His grey eyes are intent on hers. "I have decided to change, Sonia, truly change, not just for you, but because of you, because you showed me what it looks like to have the courage to start over." Sonia feels tears prick at her eyes. "Dante, I love you." The words come out rough, as though he has dragged them from somewhere deep inside. "I should have said it sooner." Should have said it 1,000 times by now. But I love you, Sonia Herrera. I love the way you see the world, the way you see me. I love your strength and your softness and everything in between. The tears are falling now, but she is smiling through them. I love you too, she says. I think I have since the moment you put your jacket around my shoulders on those cathedral steps. Dante pulls her into his arms, holding her close, his heart beating steady against her cheek. I have something to ask you, he murmurs into her hair. Yes? He releases her just enough to reach into his pocket and withdraw a small velvet box. Sonia's breath catches as he opens it to reveal a ring, not ostentatious, not dramatic, but elegant and beautiful, a diamond surrounded by sapphires the color of his eyes. Sonia Maria Herrera. He goes down on one knee, this powerful man who commands an empire, kneeling before her like a supplicant. Will you marry me? The word that emerges from her throat is barely a whisper, but it carries the weight of everything she has survived, everything she has found, everything she hopes for. Yes. He slides the ring onto her finger, and then he is standing, lifting her off her feet, spinning her around while she laughs with a joy she did not know she was capable of feeling. When? She gasps when he finally sets her down. Whenever you want, tomorrow, next month, next year. He cups her face in his hands. I have waited this long to find something worth holding on to. I can wait as long as you need. Summer, she decides, a summer wedding, in the garden with the roses in bloom. Then summer it will be. The months that follow are full of preparations, not just for the wedding, but for the transformation Dante has set in motion. Sonia watches as he navigates the dangerous waters of legitimizing his family's enterprises, making deals with former rivals, establishing foundations and charities that bear the Moretti name. Not everyone approves. There are threats, challenges, moments when she sees the old darkness surface in his eyes. But he always comes back to her, always finds his way home, and each time the darkness seems a little smaller, a little less consuming. Carmen returns for the wedding, of course, along with a guest list that seems to include half of Chicago's most powerful families. Elena and Tomas bring Gabriel, now a chubby toddler who takes his first steps on the estate's lawn and is immediately scooped up by his adoring godfather. Even Margaret cracks a smile during the ceremony, though she will deny it later. The wedding itself is everything Sonia never knew she wanted. Intimate, despite the guest list, meaningful despite the spectacle. She walks down the garden path in a dress of ivory silk, Carmen at her side, and meets Dante, at an altar covered in white roses. The vows they speak are traditional, but the promises in their eyes are not. They promise to build something new from the ashes of their old lives. They promise to face whatever comes together. They promise to love each other through light and shadow, through peace and storm, through everything that the future might bring. When Dante kisses her, sealing their marriage before God and everyone who matters, Sonia feels a certainty settle into her bones that she has never felt before. This is where she belongs. This is who she was always meant to become. The reception spills across the estate grounds, champagne flowing, music playing, laughter rising toward a sky streaked with the colors of sunset. Sonia dances with her husband, and thinks about the woman she was 6 months ago, standing alone on the steps of St. Anthony's Cathedral, watching her life fall apart. That woman could never have imagined this, could never have dreamed that destruction would lead to such overwhelming joy. What are you thinking? Dante asks, pulling her closer. I'm thinking about fate, she says, about how a christening and a divorce led me to you. And are you grateful? She looks up at him, this man who has given her everything, safety, love, a future she never dared to hope for. More than I could ever say. The music changes, and Carmen appears at Sonia's elbow. My turn, the old woman declares, pulling Dante onto the dance floor with a strength that belies her age. Sonia watches them dance, her heart full to bursting, and feels a hand slip into hers. He's different because of you. It is Vincenzo, standing beside her with a glass of champagne. We all see it. You've given him something none of us could. What's that? Hope? Vincenzo squeezes her hand. Welcome to the family, Sonia Moretti. Sonia Moretti. The name feels strange and right at the same time, like a door opening onto a room she did not know existed. Thank you, she says, for everything. As the party continues around her, Sonia slips away to the terrace, their terrace, the place where so much began. She stands at the railing, looking out at the lake, and lets herself feel the full weight of her gratitude. For Carmen, who raised her with love and fierce determination, for Elena and Tomas, who brought her into Dante's world without knowing they were changing her life, for Gabriel, whose christening marked the end of one story and the beginning of another, and for Dante, who looked at a woman standing alone in the ruins of her marriage and saw someone worth saving. There you are. He appears beside her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. I was wondering where my wife had gone. I needed a moment, she leans back against his chest, to remember how I got here. And how do you feel about where you ended up? Sonia turns in his arms, framing his face with her hands. I feel like I'm finally home, she says. Like everything that happened, every heartbreak, every disappointment, every moment of pain, led me exactly where I was supposed to be. Dante kisses her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Then let's go back to our guests, he says, and celebrate the beginning of the rest of our lives. Hand in hand, they return to the party, to the family, to the future they are building together, and in the warmth of a summer evening, surrounded by love and laughter and the promise of tomorrow, Sonia Moretti knows that the best chapters of her story are only just beginning. If you have watched this far, it is because you liked this story. Leave a comment saying, I have watched this far, so I can get to know you and see who really enjoys the stories here on the channel. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, please subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Give this video a like to help more people find it, and share it with someone who needs to believe that second chances are possible. Because sometimes the worst moment of your life is just the doorway to something beautiful you never expected. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, your story is still being written.